Welcome back. This is the third lesson recording for IM1, January 5th, 2021. So now we're going to go back to talking about square roots, but non-whole number square roots. So not all square roots result in a whole number. For example, square root of 40. So in this case, just like we had before, we are looking for a number that multiplied to itself twice gives 40. Well, we know that 6 times 6 is 36 and 7 times 7 is 49. 40 is somewhere between 36 and 49, right? So, so I can even think of this as square root of 40 is somewhere between square root of 49 and square root of 36, because 36 and 49, they are the perfect squares that we do know of. What is square root of 36? That's 6. So far we know that square root of 40 is somewhere between 6 and square root of 49 is 7, somewhere between 6 and 7. So then let's consider maybe it's like 6.5. So if I multiply 6.5 times 6.5, I get 42.5. That's very close to 40, but it's not quite 40. Okay, it's still a little bit too big. So this case, we are going to go down one more, a little bit more, and maybe consider 6.3 times 6.3. So, and we're getting closer, aren't we? Okay, so it turns out the square root of 40 is an irrational number. That means it's a decimal that goes on forever without any repetition or a pattern, which is between 6 and 7. So we know that square root of 40 is some decimal number that goes on forever. That's the irrational number, which is between 6 and 7. So this gives you a sort of an idea as to how big a number you're dealing with. Okay, so then let's do a visual representation of the non-square root of square root of 40. So this time we're given the area is 40. We know the square, if I have a square area of 36, the side length is 6 and the side length is 7 if it's a area of 49. And we know that the size somewhere in between. And we know that if you have an area of 36, the sides are 6 and 6. And if you have a square of 49, area of 49, the side length are 7 and 7. So we can think of this as square root of 40. Again, square root of, square root of 40 is somewhere between 6 and 7. It's in between. So I am going to draw my parenthesis here. So I know that square root of 40 is somewhere between 6 and 7. And it turns out, as we've said before, square root of 40 is a number which is between 6 and 7. Okay, so now this time you're going to go back to decimals and you're just going to be doing card number 11. And keep in mind the perfect squares that I have listed here. And pause the video and try them yourself. This is where you are estimating where the 4 square roots should be. Okay, square root of 52. Well, square root of 52 is between square root of 49. That's a perfect square. Perfect square, which is 7. And the next number up is 8, which is 64. It's between 49 and 64, so it has to be between 7 and 8. So I am going to move that to between 6 and 7. Okay. All right, the next one, square root of 18. Well, square root of 16 is 4, and square root of 25 is 5, so it's between 4 and 5. Square root of 100. Square root of 100 is between square root of 100, 110 is square between square root of 100, which is 10, and square root of 11, which is 121. So it's between 10 and 11. And what about square root of 75? Square root of 75 is between square root of 8 and square root of 64 and square root of 81. So it's between 8 and 9. Okay, and you're done. Okay, so let's just quickly consider some different cases. All right. So you are going to answer in private chat. What is square root of 1? Okay, tell me in private chat, what is square root of 1? What number multiplied to itself twice becomes 1? That's 1. What is square root of 0? It's 0. What about square root of 12 squared? Well, 12 squared means the side length is 12, and then squaring it makes an area, and then taking a square root of it means that you're looking for the side length. So it just becomes 12. And likewise, square root of 12 all squared is same as 12. Okay, what is square root of negative 4? Okay, square and square root undo each other. Okay, so for the first two examples, the square and square root undo each other. And that is the reason that you are at you end up with the number that you started off with. What is square root of negative 4? Square root of negative number is illegal until IM2. And you will learn about square root of a negative number then, okay? Because at this point, you're looking for a number that multiplies to itself twice. That gets you a negative number, and there is no number at this point. But you're going to learn about imaginary number then, okay? And please take notes on this. All right, so then I would like you to try to answer in private chat. What do you think is 4 square root of 36? Remember, this is different to a little 4 being at the top here. This is 4 just outside the square root and square root of 36. And other thing that you should remember is square root is a grouping symbol. That means you always try to evaluate what's inside the grouping symbol first, if at all possible. So you're taking notes? Well, what it means is 4 is being multiplied. Remember, when you have a number and a variable or number um, with another number without any operation, the default operation is multiplication. So there is an invisible multiplication symbol right between the number and the square root sign. So this is saying 4 times square root of 36. That makes it a whole lot easier. What's square root of 36? That's just 6. That means you were just multiplying 4 and 6 and to get 24. Okay, so now you're going to go on to the rest of the decimal cards, and that's from card 12 to 20. So please pause the video and try to do them yourself. Okay, I'm going to go over them. All right, remember 5 root 49. What is that? Simplify just means make it simpler, make it look simpler. Okay, so remember there is a default of multiplication symbol right there. Okay, so that this is same as 5 multiplied by square root of 49. And what is square root of 49? That's just 7. So it's 5 multiplied by 7, which is 35. And that's your answer. Okay, what about next one? This time, it's same thing, but you're just dealing with negative 2 as being multiplied. So again, you have a multiplication symbol right there. So that becomes negative 2 multiplied by square root of 10 or square root of 100. So negative 2 is being multiplied to, what is square root of 100? That's just 10. So negative 2 times 10 is negative 20. What about this? Okay, so we have two problems. Simplify square root of 25 plus 11. And then you have simplify square root of 25. And with outside the square root symbol, you have 11. What is the difference? Well, the square root symbol extends all the way here, whereas this one does not. Okay, so that makes a whole lot different. Okay, so square root of 25 plus 11. Remember, square root is a grouping symbol. That means you want to try to evaluate what's inside first, if at all possible. So that means you want to do square root of the 25, you need to add 25 and 11 first. What's 25 plus 11? That's 36. So that just becomes square root of 36. And what do we know about square root of 36? That's just 6. So the final answer for here is 6. What about this case? Square root of 25 plus 11. You evaluate what's inside the square root symbol first. That's square root of 25 is just 5. And then you are adding 11. And so 5 plus 11 is 16. So you get very different answers. Okay, so make sure you are clear on what the differences are. Okay, what about this? Square root of 64 divided by 2. Again, you want to evaluate the square root first. Square root of 64 is just 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. What about negative 50 divided over 2 and negative here? Okay, so whenever you see a negative in front, you want to think of it as negative 1 is being multiplied to square root of 50 over 2. Okay, that's what negative symbol does. It's negative 1 is being multiplied. Now, between the multiplication and grouping symbol, which is the higher order we need to evaluate first? So grouping symbol is always first. That means we need to evaluate this first. 50 divided by 2 is 25. We still have the square root sign because we have not dealt with it, but to that we have to multiply negative 1. What's square root of 25? That's just 5. So negative 1 is being multiplied to 5. So that's going to be negative 5. Okay, what about square root of 495 all square? Remember, we said that square root and square, they undo each other. That means we can even cancel them out. And you're just left with 495. And likewise here, square root of 701, then all squared. Again, the squaring and the square rooting, the symbols cancel each other out, and you're left with 701 as your final answer. And what about 4 root 1? This is same as 4 times square root of 1. We know square root of 1 is just 1, so that's 4 times 1, which is just 4. And then lastly, how are square root of negative 81 and cube root of negative 81 different? Are they both possible? If yes, state their value. If no, explain why. Well, we know that square root, we're looking for a number that is multiplied to itself twice that gives a negative number. Remember, you might think that, oh, it's negative 9. Is that so? Well, oops. Well, 9 times negative 9 is positive 81, and 9 times 9 is also positive 81. So squaring, you cannot get negative number here. Um, so this is not true. Okay, so that's why it is not possible. While as cube root of negative 81, You can multiply some number 3 times, negative number 3 times,